Greetings, everyone. Peace, love, light, and unity to all. I am here with my elven sister, Erulisse, who is going to be speaking with me about sex, romance, and the relationships that elves have. One of the things that we came across within our Elven-light path group, because she's actually an admin with me now, is people wanted to hear more about, what would elven sex and romance be like? Because in Tolkien stories, you don't really get a real strong sense of it. I mean, we know there were couples and there were actual children, like Legolas had a mother and things like that, but we don't really get a chance to really see that because it was a different time when Tolkien wrote his stories, and Tolkien himself was more of a modest person, so I can understand where he was coming from. So we wanted to kind of go through what it would look like, and Erulisse is really good with that because she actually wrote some elven romantic and adventure stories. So I will put the link down below and you can read some of her stories that she writes. So I'm just going to have Erulisse talk to us and tell us a little bit about what she found out in her investigation and exploration of elven sex and romance and what she decided to put inside of her stories. Take it away.
Micah Von and Melon. I hope everyone's having a good day or evening or morning, wherever you are in the world. Um, I first wanted to start off just with some affirmations. You are a divine being and an enlightened soul. Um, and to others, you may come across as intimidating or, either that or being a being of light. And I just wanted to, just assure you that you're not causing anyone to feel that way. You can't control anyone's emotions, but always just respond to them with love and light, and they'll see that more from you and our kin. Um, but your body is your kingdom, and you want your kingdom, clean and healthy and fit, and you want it to shine, and you want it to be a reflection of your inner soul. Um, and you have the power to just design that at your own will. So focus your attention by sending loving thoughts, into your kingdom and outwards into the world. And, you'll create a peaceful coexistence between different consciousness. Um, New adventures, new synchronicities, some amazing connections can be forged that way. Um, I also just wanted to, I'm looking at my notes. If anyone sees me looking down, I just took notes for this. um, but I just wanted you to, no matter what your body type is, your color, your gender, your choices, your body is divine. Your soul chose the body you're in for a reason. It is your divine expression. And that is how your soul has decided to outwardly express into the world, into the universe. So love it and treat it with kindness. And that kind of goes back to how I said your body is your kingdom to rule. You have complete control over your body. And, just, rule it with love and kindness, treat it with love and kindness. Um, And since this is a little bit of a different subject, this was something that Kimbrell and I were discussing, and in the group that I admin with her, we were just talking about it, and a lot of our elves wanted to hear about this topic, and since it's not elaborated a whole lot on in Tolkien's works, but we know it happened. There were many married couples in Middle Earth. There was Celeborn and Galadriel, Elrond and Celebrian. Lord Elrond married Galadriel and Celeborn's daughter. And we know that Legolas had a mother. We know that King Thranduil was once married. It's filled with elven couples that did produce offspring. So just because a lot of people think that, oh, well, it's not in the book, so it's not canon, it didn't happen. It happened. There were, it's one of those things, like if you're watching a movie, and just because you don't see someone, in the restroom or taking a shower, it doesn't mean it didn't happen. So it did happen, but the elves were very, and I've done a lot of research on this. Um, Sex was a very important aspect of life for them. Um, and it was very unique. And sex, for Tolkien, sex equals marriage. A lot of people know about Tolkien. He come from a Catholic background. And he was, a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for? Modest.
Yeah.
Yes, he was very modest.
Maybe
He
pious.
didn't, obviously, like, I think that's another thing I love about his works, is they're poetic, and there's no raunchiness or um, anything that's abrasive. So even in, this and this, his personal notes are where I have drawn a lot of my notes about elven sex and romance. Um, Things that he's written himself that he didn't put in the books, and some of the things that he did put in the books, it's in Laws and Customs of the Eldar, and that's in Morgoth's Ring. And you can find that. There's copies I've seen on eBay, Amazon. Some of them can be pricey, some of them you can find used. But I would definitely recommend that if you're wanting to look at more what Tolkien says about elves and sex and marriage and so on, and childbirth and all of those things he's written about. Um, but when you, as an elf, um, are with somebody in an intimate way, it's very important, in my opinion, that you find someone where their energy and their vibrations and their frequencies are on the same level as yours. And it's kind because it's kind of difficult, and I know many women and men have gone through a lot of the same things that I have. Especially before your elven awakening, you try to find love and you think that sex equals love. And that's not always the case. And it's rarely the case, especially when, you're using that as the grand expression of love when it's not. There's so many different ways, especially to those in the asexual community, the gay community, the straight community, all these communities, not sex does not equal love, but sex is a byproduct of that love. And the same with intimacy. Um, excuse me, intimacy is not always just about the pleasure. Pleasure is the byproduct of that intimacy. Intimacy you can achieve not even with physical touching. Just, the talking, and you could be off kilter. Your vibrations and your frequencies cannot be always be the same, but the intimacy draws you to that same wavelength. And that's where the pleasure becomes a byproduct. And when you're on that same wavelength, and there's a connection, a heart to heart connection. That's where, sometimes, if that is what you're interested in, if you're not in the asexual community and you are find yourself or feel yourself to be a sexual being, sex can enter. I myself am in a monogamous relationship, and that's how Tolkien's elves are. They marry for life. Sex equals marriage, according to Tolkien, and that because their souls are joining. Their souls become one, and that even through death, even in death, they are still married, because in Tolkien's world, the elves can be reincarnated, and that is, I believe, that's touched on more so in the Silmarillion than it is in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
We know Glorfindel, he died and he was reincarnated. So that it was just very important to keep that a sacred ritual with the singular person, just the one person that you choose to marry or have sex with. But like I said before my awakening, you try to find, it's like trying to find love in all the wrong ways. and you make mistakes, you do things with the wrong people, and it doesn't produce the right outcome. It can lead to, for some people, like for me, it led to broken hearts, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of self-esteem issues, and a lot of those things can be avoided if you love your kingdom, take care of your kingdom, and guard, not necessarily guard it, but be a protector of your lands. Which that's the only way I can describe it. I feel is to look at it that way. You are your body's ruler. But through sex, you're reminded of your own vitality. So when you're with your partner, you need to think of it like, are they happy? Are they a happy individual? Are they bitter? Do they love you? Do they love themselves? Do they love both themselves and you the way it should be? You should be able to love yourself before you can outwardly express that to your partner. You can't, it can't be a tool. It has to be something that happens organically when both are ready, and you have no shadow of a doubt, like, I do love myself and I do love that my partner, and the same for them. That goes back to being on the same wavelength and the same vibrational frequency. But sex, you're reminded of your own vitality, and whenever you're with the right individual, it can help activate your awakened cosmic mind. And it can be a multiple channel experience. Excuse me. But for women, when you're with your partner, are they refueling your energy? Are they giving you light? Are they being positive? What are their intentions? And the same for men. When you're with somebody, when you're with your partner, are they draining you or are they refilling you? Are they there to bless you or to curse you? These are things that you need to think about beforehand, because a lot of people think, especially in this modern day, just to jump from partner to partner to partner. But when you look at your body and yourself as a kingdom, do you switch, your king or queen, or your king and king, or your queen and queen so often that you lose control of your own kingdom? And you can't control that. And then it's just, you need to keep control of your lands. You need to, love them, care for them, take care of yourself, take care of your soul, because your soul chose this body as its divine vehicle on this plane. But it's, sex is important. It's a ritual of exchanging energies, thoughts, emotions, spirits. And when you are in the act, you do become a spiritual sponge for your partner. So whatever they have, negative energies, negative influences, intentions, that is what is coming into your soul. That's what's coming into your heart. So you need to, just take your time, be on the same frequency and wavelength as your partner, and it will be such an amazing different experience for you than anything else. That's my take on it. So just make sure they're not draining your life force and your energy. Make sure they're recharging, healing, and fueling your spirit. And do your intention behind it, and their intention behind it is pure, and there is a love there. So that overall, that's my basic, without getting too deep or too carried away, that's my basic overture when it comes to elven sex and romance on just that.
And I would say that, I mean, that's perfect. That's exactly how I see it. One of the things that I realized within my life is this element of courtship. And what you said was make sure that a person is on the same level and the frequency as you, And how you can do that is by making sure that you spend some time with them before you open your body up to them. One of the things that I have seen in Tolkien's books, and we see it in Luthien and Beren, where Luthien is dancing and she attracts Beren. So you have the act of seduction, but then you also have this courtship, this friendship that develops between the two characters. And that is so important. And in this modern time, sometimes that is something that's forgotten, is that kind of sacred ritual of when you're courting somebody, what you're actually doing is you're reading their energy. You're actually getting a sense of where they are in their life. Are they emotionally ready? Are they available? Do they mirror and reflect back all of the dreams, the goals, the desires that you have that you wish to experience in this life as somebody who wishes to have a love relationship with someone? You know, this is something that I had to learn as well. I have always been somebody like you that always kind of searched for love. And I thought that sex was a way of kind of solidifying a connection.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would do is if the relationship was starting off in a good way, but it was too soon, but I wanted to kind of push and solidify that connection and build that bridge towards them, I would open my body up towards them. And afterwards, sometimes we would stay together, sometimes we wouldn't. But the problem with that is that it makes you kind of feel violated. Like, okay, so I just opened my soul. I just gave you, a piece of me, and now you're ready to move on. And so this is something that I think that really affects a lot of people, and they might not talk about it, but it is something that kind of affects how they view relationships. And then later on, one of the things that you talked about was like, do they have bitterment within them? Something that is becoming a little apparent in this world is a little bit of a kind of a resentment towards the opposite sex. I've heard of some males really disliking females, calling them like femoids, which
Mm-hmm.
means like they're not even human. And then also the ultra, feminazi that is totally against the male, then that happens too. And so we have this extreme where it's like you're both parts of the universe, these energies are within you both, but you're not acknowledging the masculine or the feminine within you, and you're hating the opposite of you.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that can really cause a split in the psyche, which causes bitterment, resentment. And then that will not allow love to come easily into your life. So then you'll get even more bitter, you'll feel more resentful towards the opposite sex. And really, how you can just kind of make sure that that doesn't happen is by being authentic to who you are when you meet somebody, and making sure that you don't jump into having sex with somebody until you actually are at that level and you kind of have gauged that time. I was telling I was telling you before we went on air that I can visualize like how the elves would court each other. Is they would see each other in the forest, and they would, be riding on their horses, or they would be, doing archery in the Mirkwood forest. And there would be some kind of flirtatious banter, some teasing going on. And eventually that would develop into a friendship. And there's a lot of titillation and sensuality and kind of like this teasing type of energy that elves have. And I can see that that is what is a way of gauging where a person is. Because if you can develop a friendship with somebody, if you can actually develop kind of a heart to heart connection without sex, then that sex will be so much better when you
Oh,
actually do have sex.
and going back to just the courtship aspect, and courtship is something you don't see, especially in modern day. But just referring that to Tolkien and his works with the elves, there was a heavy courtship between the two parties that had any type of desire or feelings towards each other. and then they would be betrothed, and they would exchange bands of silver that they would wear on their forefingers, and normally they were betrothed for at minimum a year, a full year, and that's after the courtship, the period of courtship. And betrothals, according to Tolkien, with the elves, they were very rarely ever broken, because you were courting this partner for so long. Normally, whenever you made a decision to enter just the betrothal, aka engagement, normally what we call it in modern day an engagement, you knew, your soul, it was on the same frequency. You grew with this person, you learned about them, you learned what they love and what they don't love, and likes and dislikes, and just their passions and things of that nature. And then after, at minimum just a year of the betrothal, then that's when marriage would come about.
And it's not like the
Yes.
betrothing, if I could just say something, it's not like the betrothing on earth where you have like the parents forcing two strangers together. It was different. It was that it was also a choice of the elves to
Yeah.
be betrothed.
Yes, there was absolutely no arranged marriages amongst the elves at all. That was like a huge no-no, because anytime, and this kind of bridges a gap, or bridges to elven sex, if obviously there wasn't, but if that was to happen, we all know, the act of, the ritual of sex, that would kill the elves. They would immediately, their bodies would just, nope, and their souls would flee to Mandos. So we know for a fact, there was no, it was all just their own will, their own acts, their own choices. So absolutely, yeah, there were no arranged marriages, nothing, no one forced together, just things of that nature, according to Tolkien. And in the quest, it's something I've been writing for about a year and a half. And it does take place in Middle Earth, and um, it spans through the entire trilogy, all the way 100+ years after the destruction of the ring. I detail a lot of the courtship, the betrothal, marriage, sex, and things of that nature, according to how Tolkien envisioned it and how his rules set aside for it. And I did my best to capture that, because a lot of people were very confused, just because it's not in the books, it didn't happen, it didn't exist. And, I had my own original character in mind, and I wrote her as an individual before I inserted her into this narrative for many years, simply because it was part of like an external part of my own awakening journey. And as you read that, you'll see her awakening journey unfold. So she's a bit of an outward expression of myself through my awakening phases, all the way through. So yes, but you'll see like the little things, the examples. There's even a full wedding ceremony, elven wedding ceremony, detailed within one chapter, all written in Kenya, which took way too long. But yeah, a lot of it, I did derive from Tolkien's own writings, looking at laws and customs of the Eldar, his personal notes that he did not publish, just things that were released, or, in the, I don't want to say catalog, but, not in the vault, but, just things that were in those libraries. So you can always look them up. Look up laws and customs of the Eldar, Tolkien, and it's in Morgoth's Ring. That's the best way I can lead you if you're looking for it from a Tolkien standpoint.
I think some people always thought that the elves were asexual, or they didn't have they didn't have sex just because he didn't show that in the books. But even though, like Legolas, he doesn't really have a partnership, it's not to say that that wouldn't happen later on in his life. And so I think it's good that you kind of you expand upon something that Tolkien didn't necessarily do it just because it just wasn't who he was. I mean, I have read the letters of Tolkien, and he does express himself as he was a young man and he would chase after skirts, and he actually said that about women, is that he found women very enticing, like shooting stars that you could go towards, and some men would fall into despair because they would be trying to go for the shooting star, and they would lose a part of themselves. And so he, to me, was a very romantic individual, and his wife and him actually do mirror the Arwen Aragorn type of marriage and love, that is the type of soul to soul connection. And if you read more about his marriage to his wife, I mean, you could just tell that he, after being a young man and going through the experience of, kind of chasing after women based on more of a superficial desire, he then found that real love. And that's why I think that he was able to kind of channel that energy, that romantic, that really deep, soulful kind of connection that he had with his wife into the relationship of Arwen and Aragorn and the other couples on Middle Earth as well. We see a lot of that, of who he was, reflected in the story. And so I think it's really great that you were able to kind of take it a little bit further, make it more of an extension of, how he would write about the elves, and bring forth that kind of more real reality to sex and romance that we don't get to see in the book. So I think that's really great, and I hope that people get a chance to read your story, The Quest. It's really great. I just wanted to read something that is kind of interesting. This is from the Perilous and Fair book, which is a bit of basically kind of like an account of all the women in Tolkien's stories. And there is some criticism, but there's also a lot of really positive type of supportive writing. And one of the things that I really love, and I wanted to read this for anybody who is androgynous, homosexual, pansexual, just in a different type of label than what we would say a heterosexual. I just want people to know, and also to see Tolkien's elves as, once again, not being determined by particular feminine or masculine aspects, but actually holding both the divine and the masculine within. Mm-hmm. And I think that that is a very powerful tool that they would be able to use when they actually have coitus, as he called sex, because it would be a kind of a matching energy of the divine and the masculine meeting together and creating like the Big Bang of the universe, where, the masculine and the feminine energies in all the universe and all of art are coming together as one. So I wanted to read this. It says, from the opening pages of the Silmarillion, it is clear that Tolkien believes that gender and sex are not one and the same, and that gender, or masculine and feminine, is a condition of the universe that goes deeper, higher, and wider than sex, mere male and female, and the necessities of reproduction. Through the Silmarillion runs this theme: in Arda and in the heavens, the feminine and the masculine are present when they are in equilibrium and in harmony. There is good, but evil is a result of an insufficiency or disharmony of the attributes of one or the other of the genders. Concepts of feminine and masculine are their attributes and roles, are thus tied to concepts of good and evil, and are therefore near the center of Tolkien's tale, which is, after all, a tale of the struggle between good and evil. Tolkien makes an explicit statement on gender early in the Silmarillion. He writes, "But when they clothe themselves, the Valar take upon them forms of male, and some as of female. For that difference of temper they had even from the beginning, and it is but bodied forth in the choice of each, not made by the choice." According to Tolkien, feminine and masculine possess different characteristics that are meant to complement and augment one another. So I thought that that was really beautiful because that's something that I think we need to bring back to the modern times is like the masculine and the feminine can start to complement one another. And it doesn't matter which one you identify more with. If you're in maybe a female body or you were born female, but you feel more masculine or vice versa. It's about finding a partner that complements that, that is maybe the opposite of that, or at least brings forth an equilibrium and a harmony. And when you have sex with each other, like you said, you're kind of like a sponge where it's like you absorb what is ever inside of them into your being, and they do to you. They do from you, and you also kind of mirror each other's desires. So the way that you want to be touched, the way that you want to, experience sex in that moment, that can only happen when you actually reach that equilibrium and that harmony with somebody else. So it doesn't really happen in one night stands. You can have very steamy, nights, but the most, I guess, potent type of sex is the one where someone actually knows you, can mirror what you desire, can know how to touch you and how to make you feel great. And I think that is something that a lot of young people kind of forget. And sex is seen as very casual. And it's okay if you want to partake in that, but don't be surprised that you're not fulfilled by doing that, because that is not, that is sex on the lower dimension of just the physicality of space. It's not entering into space time. It's not entering into the heart chakra. It's not entering into, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth dimension. And sex actually can be experienced on different dimensions. You can go from just having a very superficial kind of 2D type of sex all the way to like the cosmic gates opening up and you having like that one soul to soul experience and showing you and kind of reflecting your higher self within that moment in time. There's a reason why people say, "Oh God," when they're having sex. I've always thought about that. That is something that is, it's almost like when you're having sex with somebody that is on that same level as you, they become a mirror to you and you become a mirror to them, and you show that you are both creators and you're coming together to create something new, whether it be a new life form or whether it just be a heightened experience in your relationship that takes you to the next level, or whether it just be a fabulous night that you can never forget.
Exactly. Yes. Whenever it's the same concept where, they're refueling or re-energizing your spirit. Whenever you mentioned, proclaiming, oh God, during the action or the ritual, when
Isn't that funny? Everybody says that.
your spirit's being fed, or when your spirit's being refueled and re-energized, you just have this surge of energy flowing through your body, and as does your partner. But then, when you flip it, and if, when you're younger and in modern days, people look at it as an action, something more casual, what you're doing, is you're giving a piece of your soul to that individual, and you're creating a soul tie. And this is, you see, I see it more often so in men here recently, but we all know it occurs in men and women. You'll hear, why can't I find a good man? Why can't I find a good woman? Why can't I find a good partner? But they're sleeping around, they're just looking for love in all the wrong places and doing the wrong things, trying to capture that love. What they're doing is every time you are partaking in the ritual, you're creating a soul tie with another person. And that's a piece of your soul with them, and there's a tie, and then another person, and then another person. It's draining you. You're creating all these channels where it's pouring out of you, and they're gone. or they've hurt you or whatever, and it's just pouring out of you, and there's nothing incoming. There's nothing to refuel you and to recharge you. But when, you have the one individual and you're, you went through the courtship or the betrothal and the marriage, or, just finding just that one person on the same frequency that isn't a bitter person, that is full of light and love with the right intentions behind it. And the exclamation, the proclamation of, oh God, and they're refueling you and fulfilling you. And it's helpful for your life force, and it's healing your body, and it's keeping you in tune with your soul. So that's where that's coming from. And, you can, and those soul ties, they can be broken, but it does take time. It's like, you hear like time heals all wounds, things that, that little saying. It does take time for those soul ties to fade. And then when you do find and take the patience with a partner, not just yourself being patient, but when you see your partner taking that same patience and care with you, it's not that they're not interested in you, it's that they do care for you. They want it all, they want to be on that same frequency with you before that happens. And honestly, that's one of the best things that I've experienced in my life. With my husband, he cared, and that was the first time I ever experienced that, where he wanted to wait, he wanted to, build that connection and us be on that same frequency beforehand. And it's like nothing, it's almost like I was cleansed.
Yeah.
Like anything that happened before, anything I've done before, he's done before, is wiped away. I can't even remember a lot of those occurrences, because he and I, our soul is one, and we refuel and recharge the other, because we have the right intentions. We're on the same vibrational frequency. Our it's just a completely different experience. So those soul ties can be broken, but don't look for another person to break those soul ties. Allow time to pass, and allow, when you do meet someone else and you still feel that hurt from your past, when you develop this new connection to this new partner, and you're taking that time, and even, aside from sex, just building the intimacy, which can be holding hands or just sitting together and talking, those soul ties begin to fade from your past until they're broken.
Yeah, I agree. I actually, that's exactly how I ended up meeting my husband. Was I gave myself a long time after a particular relationship that ended, and I thought that I was supposed to be with that person, and I ended up instead just finding love for myself and going through my personal awakening. And only when, and I tell anybody who ever kind of says like, oh, why can't I find somebody, why can't I find love, I always tell them, I say, don't look for it. Because when you, it's not necessarily about not looking for it, it's about being so focused on your own inner healing, that you're focusing on your own inner healing, that the universe is bringing forth and kind of manifesting that type of person that would aid in that healing, because you're doing that work already. You're healing your heart, you're healing your soul, you're taking the time, you're not jumping into the next relationship, you're actually taking the time that you need. So you're going to meet that other person that is going to kind of mirror and reflect what you are already doing right now. You are working on yourself, you're healing yourself. You will meet that partner that actually helps you in that process. And that was my husband. I met him, I was dancing. I went to a club because I just said, I just want to dance. Elves and fairies would love to dance, right? So I was just dancing, and he kind of inched his way over to me on the dance floor. And after that, I can tell you that there was a true courtship where he did not play games. And that's something that we see in modern times. There's this kind of, oh, I don't want to get hurt, So I'm going to pretend that I don't like this person or that I don't need this person. And then they wait, 3 days to call. They make the other person suffer in asking questions. Well, does this person really like me?
Mhm.
And I tell my friends, I say, the person who plays games with you is just not emotionally ready and not really there to be able to give up to a full relationship, or to give themselves fully to the relationship that you deserve. The person that does not play games is ready, because if they're ready themselves, they're not going to play games with you. They're going to know and recognize who you are right away, and they're not going to let you slip. They're not going to pretend that they don't like you. They're not going to have you go through, wondering, oh, is he going to call me ever? Oh, is she ever going to come back into my life? No, that the games are when somebody is unsure, and not necessarily about you, but they're unsure about themselves. They have a lot of work to do still. They're still processing information on themselves. They're still going through their own awakening and enlightenment experience.
Mhm.
So you need to meet a soul when you're an elven soul, when you're somebody that considers himself like at a higher consciousness level, ready to experience the same kind of love back. Then you need to wait and be with somebody that doesn't play games and actually goes through the courtship. And what you said was so important, that he didn't want to jump into sex. And that's when you know that somebody wants you for more than your body. They're
Mhm.
like, no, can we talk? Can we go out? Can we enjoy each other's company before we actually get intimate with each other? So, I mean, that's something that's kind of missing from modern times. And I thought it was really beautiful that we still have that in the stories like Tolkien. And, that's something I think that we need to bring back. So I'm happy that we're able to talk about this, because there is a very sexual free kind of movement going on, where people are like, oh, you can be as sexually free as you want and have as much sex as you want. Yes, but what is it actually doing for you in the long run? I
Mhm.
mean, yes, you have a temporary fulfillment of pleasure. But if you look at the story of Adam and Eve,
Absolutely, yep.
the whole idea about the temptation from the devil to come into this lower dimension was sex,
Mhm.
to see each other's body parts. And when they bit into the apple, they had that vision and they saw each other, and then they started to do it, a lot. Not that sex brings you to a lower dimension, but that it is and could be just about the physical pleasures if you do not engage your higher self within the act. And the
Mhm.
way to engage your higher self is by always being truly authentic and present, and making sure that the person, like you said, is on that same level, so that they can mirror back that, so that you don't finish the act and they leave, they don't want to cuddle, or they don't want to extend the relationship further, and you're left with insecurities. And you know what insecurities do? They wrap you around in your subjective ego of your human shell, and they make you question yourself as an unlimited being in the universe. If
Mhm.
you are forced to question yourself, am I good enough to love? Why did this person leave me? Well, then guess what? You're forgetting that you ultimately are a powerful divine source of energy. And that is the real problem when sex is taken very lightly. It can keep you down in the lower dimensions if it is just about the physical. But if you engage the higher consciousness within sex, that's when you can enter into, the cosmic consciousness, and it can actually be an experience on Earth where you deepen a relationship with a person that furthers your awakening. That's something that I don't think people really think about that much. But when I got married to my husband, I had no idea that it would be a relationship that would challenge me and would keep me awakened.
Mhm.
So when I would slip down into the lower states of consciousness, I have my husband to pull me back up. That's what a relationship should be like. You, of course, should always be an individual responsible for pulling yourself back up to the higher states of awareness. But if you have a loving partner and a true connection, when you're in a marriage, they can be that mirror to you, and they can serve as kind of that reminder to you. Not necessarily we have like a deep discussion about, oh, everything is God and we're all part of the same collective, but you'll just have these little moments in time where you just get this kind of remembrance. And it really helps in the life experience to keep you consistently awakened. I think that that's a lot of people's goals, is once you get to that awakening state, well, how do I stay at that state? And I think the elves of Tolkien were the beings that could stay there. So when you're awakening into your elven soul, you're awakening into this capability to remain on the enlightened state as a permanent state throughout your life, where you don't have to go back into the lower states of consciousness and suffer any longer. You know who you are, you know what you're capable of, and your life becomes part of your creation. And everything that you desire, you start to live out.
Absolutely. Like I said, when we did our very first video together, how there's such a huge awakening of the elves right now, today. And it wasn't a coincidence, when I put up the poll in our group, and so many elves were just so interested in this particular topic, because it isn't discussed. It's hard to find a lot of information, even just with Google. Be cautious about what you Google. For this subject, as we just, because Kimberell and I discussed this earlier, how there's some very interesting things out there. So you're getting your information from that. A lot of this is all, coming from our experiences, our own research, and all coming from a place of love and light, in a way that's not judgmental, but in a way that we hope to inspire and to help you along your awakening and along your journey, because we're all on different levels right now of awakening. We're all in different stages. There's a lot of what I call just baby elves. There's a lot of elflings right now wandering around, in the light, and their eyes haven't quite adjusted to the light. Um, so I think, and especially, being in our modern society where sex is just something to do, instead of it, being recognized as this divine ritual that it is. We have, it's good that we're here. You can always ask us questions. I've always been one of those, like, please reach out to me if you have a question. And Kimberell's the same. Don't be afraid to go to someone that has been on this journey longer, because elves are very protective of their kin. And we're here to help teach you and to guide you and to help you in the best way that we can. And that's something, in my notes, I even have it like all caps, just be aware of your divine and sacred self. Just be constantly aware you are a divine being. Your body is its vehicle, its grand expression to drive you through this plane, this life that you're living right now, and to be kind with it and to be mindful of what you're, taking in every way from every facet of your life. So like I said, there's a lot of baby elflings, and then there's, people that are even pretty close to where we're at on our journey that still don't know these things in their awakening. They just don't have, like, I guess, a clear understanding of the importance of it. But that's my journey and my take on it that I've seen and witnessed, because I get a lot of emails and messages, and I don't get to respond to all of them. So that's why I'm so happy we got to do this video to help. So that way, it can be an embarrassing topic, and it's understandable. It's very personal, it's divine, because you're divine. So just if there's any questions, like I said, feel free to reach out to us if something didn't come across quite clear.
Yeah, it's
um,
very abstract what we were saying, but one thing I do want to say before we go is to an elf, we're very solitary creatures in the idea that you could be an extrovert, you can be an introvert, but there's this ability to be one with nature and to be okay and kind of content with just that. So my advice and what I have seen within my own life of how I met my husband was be content to be on your own. If you cannot meet somebody at your level and who's playing games with you and is treating you as just, a body and something to do, please have enough respect for yourself as your divine sacred temple and be happy and content to be on your own until you actually find that person that is deserving of you to open up your body to
mhm,
and to give of yourself. And I think that is so key. Is a lot of times people jump into relationships, and especially sexual relationships, because they're so afraid of being alone. And when you get in touch with your elven soul, you're happy to be alone. You're fine and content with being one with the trees and the birds and just being on your own and enjoying life. And I think, feeling that connection to the cosmos and to the earth is something that can help kind of fulfill that sense of loneliness. And so
mhm,
you don't have to jump into a relationship, and especially a sexual relationship with someone. That's my advice for sure, is to be on your own until you actually can find someone that can mirror everything that you have accomplished or witnessed or realized up until now. Be with someone until, be alone until you can meet that someone who actually can show you all the love that you have inside that
mhm,
you wish to give to another. They're able to give that same amount to you. And I have a video on twin flames and soulmates, so some of you might be interested in watching that, because that goes more into the difference between soulmates. I think that, Erulisse and I are very similar in that we probably have had sexual relationships with soulmates, but
mhm,
we found our twin flame now. There is a huge difference in between the sexual experiences. Soulmates can be really kind of driven together sexually, but it's more on a kind of physical level and it's not the right time. But you do learn when you're with them. You learn so much about yourself. I call it like the stepping stone relationship until you get to the twin flame. When
mhm,
you get to the twin flame, that's when you unleash kind of that Ainur feminine masculine quality of the universe within a couple.
mhm,
And it doesn't really matter who's the masculine, who's the feminine, who's it doesn't matter about the bodies. It's about the energy that you two carry. And so you go back and forth and you complement one another. And I think that until you find that connection, be content to be on your own and just to be happy and to be free until you actually find somebody that can actually really give you back the love that you deserve. That is that is my hope for everybody, because it's something that I have learned, and it is so much more special of a sexual relationship when you actually do find that person that you really truly can just be yourself with, can be comfortable with, can be intimate with without actually being physical with.
mhm.
It is an amazing experience, as Ulysses talked about. I mean, you have a child, so um, that is part of your creation with this man. So yeah, anybody can definitely reach out to us. I hope you enjoy this, and we might maybe do another video like this where we can go into it a little bit more. Um, but I don't know. Do you have anything else to say?
Nope, I think we covered it pretty well.
I think
But
so.
yes, remember your divine self, your divine being, and care for yourself. Love yourself first before you give of your soul to another. That's my big thing that I really wanted to get across is, you are divine and you are an enlightened soul.
Yes, so namaste, and we send elven light blessings to you all. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next video.